Welcome back to MVM. Today we have a Kickstarter preview. This one is for Tiny Epic Mechs from Gamelyn Games. It is a 2 to 4 player action programming game.
Yeah, they're taking on mechs and programming this time, and you don't see a lot of programming games these days.
No.
Mechs vs. Minions last year had some programming, and then things like Robo Rally, but yeah, this is a fresh take on it.
So interesting game here. Like I said, it's 2 to 4 players. Each of the players is going to come to the table with a very specific pilot. Your pilot cards are double-sided because on one side you have your basic pilot, can hold 2 basic weapons. But once you are able to level them up, you go into an advanced power suit. This allows you to hold advanced weaponry, have more health, and have special abilities that allow you to get into the big baddie, which is the mighty mech itself.
Yeah, and like many of these Tiny Epic games these days, the power suits are represented by an actual power suit that you put your Meeple in.
That's awesome, yeah.
And then on top of that, the mighty mech is an even bigger mech that you're going to be able to jump inside.
Yeah, so your Meeples are actually going to snap into those, and of course, just like the other games, they have all kinds of different weapons. They're going to snap into those to give you representations of what you actually have for your loadout. So the game itself is going to be played on this modular map. The map is going to represent a couple different types of map tiles. You have a base for each of the players. In this case, we have a 3-player game, so each of us is going to have our own home base. You have 2 different types of basic tiles. You have your energy tiles, and then you have your credit tiles. And those are the yellow and the blues, and they all have different values, either 1 through 3. That's their point scoring structure within the game and what kind of resource they're going to pay back to you when you collect from those areas. And then you're going to have the actual mighty mech spot in the center of the table. This is equal distance from all the different players, and it's going to be the one thing that everyone's really fighting over to get inside of, because it's going to give you victory points, and it's going to allow you to hold more weaponry, and it's also has a lot of health that people are going to have to burn through.
Yeah, that mighty mech is kind of almost like a king of the hill sort of aspect to the game, because you want to get in there and last in that mech as long as you can while everyone else at the table tries to take you down. Some of the other things you see here, we've got mines and turrets on the board, but those are also in front of each player, because the players are going to start with 4 mines, and you're going to put those out on the board, spending some of those credits and or energy, as well as the turrets. These things are going to come into play when people enter those spaces. A mine might blow up, and again, it's a programming game, so things start to get pushed around, your program starts to get a little bit out of your control, so you might be entering some of those spaces without wanting to.
Speaking of the mines and the turrets, these are prototype pieces. Obviously, the mechs themselves are pretty much done, but the turrets and the mines will probably change. Each player is also going to have a cheat sheet in front of them. This is going to serve 2 basic purposes. Across the bottom, it's going to track both their energy and their credits that they're going to be able to use to buy other types of weaponry within the game. It's going to have their attack triangle. This is going to be used for counterattacks. This game has a system built in where you use like a melee weapon. It could counter a different type of weapon and so forth. So this just tells you which type of weapon counters other types of weapons. Also shows you your power-up ability. Power-up ability is used from one of the programming cards. It allows you to power up into your power suit. It also allows you to heal damage when you've taken damage through the course of the game. And on the right-hand side, it's going to show you the amount of credits it costs to deploy either a turret or a mine onto one of the locations that are on the map tile itself. You have the score tracker. Scoring is going to happen in a variety of different ways, mostly for damaging other players in the game or making them retreat from combat, but also there's going to be a scoring round on the 2nd, 4th, and the final 6th round within the game.
Yeah, and then you have these advanced weapon cards over here to the side. These are upgrades, effectively, that you're going to be able to purchase and add on to your mech. Jeremy said at the beginning, you start out with spaces to hold basic upgrades. Then you can move on with the power suit and maybe even the mighty mech to include the advanced weapon upgrades.
There's a whole bunch of different advanced weapons. However, there are 4 basic weapons, and at the start of the game, each player is going to take one of each of those basic weapons and choose one of them in secret. So they're going to start with something to be able to attack or defend with through the course of the game. And then the most important portion of the game itself are the actual programming cards. There are 8 different program cards. They're square cards, and they all allow you to do different types of abilities throughout the course of the game. Each one of the different rounds is going to be players picking 4 of those programming cards and laying them in front of them in order to enact things from left to right or in numerical order. Now, we have these kind of all splayed out over the place, but the game tells you to place them right up close to the board. That way it's telling you the direction in which you're pointing, because each of these different programming cards has a particular arrow on it. So when you place this in a very certain way, it's telling your mech to go in one of the different orthogonal directions within the game.
Yeah, and we've laid out, Jeremy has his in front of him, this dummy player has theirs. I have mine in my hand because we're going to go through some of these cards eventually when we talk about the actual structure of the game round.
The final main component I want to talk about is the Adhoc Card. Now, this is kind of cool. The Adhoc Card comes into play in one of two different ways. If you ever have to retreat from battle, when you retreat from battle, it forces you to take the Adhoc Card. It's going to replace every single one of your programs for the rest of the round. It also says on the card that the very next turn when it comes back around to you, you can't attack that turn. So it gives you some freedom to make adjustments to your program. What the Adhoc Card does, though, is it allows you to do anything with your mech for the rest of the round. Either do a collect action, maybe no action at all, maybe purchasing something from the market. So it gives you some flexibility when you've taken damage in the game.
Yeah, that flexibility is important. Like Jeremy said, you're still limited to the actions that are on your cards, but you can do any of those as many times as you want. So you're not limited to just the cards themselves.
All right, a basic turn works something like this. Now, we already have a game in progress, so we have some points already scored. Some of our mechs already have items on them, but on your turn, everybody at the same time is going to take all 8 of their cards into their hand, their programming cards, and they're going to do 2 things with them. They're going to put them in order from left to right in front of them, up against the edge of the board, because again, the program's going to happen from left to right. They're going to take one of their cards and another one and put it on top of it. And the reason for this, most people want to say, well, why don't you just put the card face down? Because you want to make sure you have the right direction. So people could flip it and change that. Yeah. So you need to put a card over top of it and put it right there over top of your first area. And everyone's going to do this, taking one of their cards and just putting them in a row like this, meaning that once we're all done, we're going to take our actions from left to right in that particular order. Now, all these program cards do very different things. So starting with the first player, we're going to reveal just our first program. So you just simply pull that card aside. It shows you the direction upon which you are moving, and then the action you get to take on that card itself.
Right, and then the next player, and so on and so forth, and that's how you're going to go through each round. Now let's talk about some of these cards. One of the most basic ones, like Jeremy just showed, ones with these arrows on them, and there's a couple different varieties of this. This one is Collect. This one's going to allow you to move in a certain direction, and then in the space that you end up in, you're going to collect either the energy or the credits. Again, these are the 2 currencies you're going to use to do a number of things, but mainly put out turrets, put out mines, and purchase upgrades.
The amount that you're going to collect is equal to the areas that you control at that given point. So if I were to collect right now, I control these blue areas where I have presence, no one else has presence. So I have a credit here, an energy here, and 3 credits here. Now, you don't look at the values of the map. You just simply look at what that thing would generate for that particular player. The second thing that could happen is you can actually deploy mines or you can deploy turrets. Again, you're going to look on your cheat sheet over here, and the cost to deploy either one of these is equal to the actual value of that particular area. So turrets cost energy, mines cost credits. So if I wanted to deploy a mine to this area, it would cost me 1 credit. And if I wanted to deploy a mine to, say, for instance, this area, it would cost me 2 credits, and so forth.
And the interesting thing about the mines is they're numbered 1 to 4 on the back. So you could put your 1 in there or your 4. The difference being that's the damage they're going to do plus the value of the space that it's in. So if Jeremy put his 4 in here and I happen to walk in there later, it's going to do 4 plus the 1 for a total of 5 damage.
Turrets do the exact same thing. They're going to do damage equal to the value, but they're going to get removed immediately as well. So you have a possibility of killing people if they move into territories that you're trying to block off from other players getting into.
Yeah, another one of the cards lets you purchase. We mentioned this earlier. You're going to be able to go over here and look at all of the upgrades that are available and purchase one of those. Some of those are going to be credits or a combination of credits and energy. And let's talk a little bit about the breakdown of these cards. Up in the upper left-hand corner, you're going to have the weapon type. This is back to that sort of rock, paper, scissors triangle of what can counter other weapons. That's where you're going to find that icon. In the upper right-hand corner, you're going to see the victory points that you'll get at the end of the game for having that weapon. And then, of course, you're going to have the picture, and underneath that, the name, and then below that is going to be the 2 types of attacks. You've got a primary attack and then the counter attack. These are going to be used in different times depending on the fighting situation, but that's where you're going to get the values of what those will do.
And remember, the primary attack is always the type of attack you're going to do in combat, unless someone via rock, paper, scissors does a particular type of attack which you can counter and use the counter attack. Now, the counter attack is usually more powerful than the primary attack itself. So you want to buy an assortment of different type of weapons that allows you to counterattack other people at the right time.
Yeah, and with that said, there is actually a card or two maybe that allows you to move and use your counterattack instead of your primary attack, but it is a very unique card, and you have to have just the right sort of situation to use it.
Right. The final type of card outside of the jumps that do the counterattack are the actual power-ups themselves. Now, the power-up, when you look at your cheat sheet once again, there's 3 different types of power-ups you can do. One is to basically heal. For every single energy that you spend, you can heal your mech 1. Now, the only caveat to that is that you cannot heal the Mighty Mech. It's 100% unable to be healed at any given point. The other 2 things are you can flip over your pilot to your power suit for 5 credits, or if you are at full health in your power suit, you can get into the Mighty Mech. And those are the 8 different types of programming cards. Let's talk a little bit about how combat works briefly. Anytime you move into another player's space, combat's going to be initiated right then. You don't get to take the action of the actual program card. So for instance, if I did a move and a collect, the collect would be ruined at that point. If there's mines, the mines are going to go off, the turrets are going to go off, and then you're going to do combat with the other player. The attacker always has initiative. Now when you go into combat, you're going to look at all the different weapons that you have. All of these are unused that you have in front of you. Each weapon's allowed to be used once and only once within combat unless it has some kind of special ability. So when I attack David in this situation, I would pick any one of my weapons, I would tap it and say that I'm doing 2 damage to you plus any special kind of ability. You're always using the top of those 2 lines within combat. Once I do the 2 damage, he's going to tick that down. I'm going to get 2 victory points for 2 damage, and then he gets to do an attack himself. Now, he has the option. Since I used the hammer in this situation, he has the opportunity to counterattack with ranged type of combat. That means he gets to use the bottom portion of his card, which is a more powerful version of the weapon that he has. If he doesn't, he can just do an attack with one of his weapons against me.
Right, and remember that counterattack has to be on a card that has that ranged weapon icon up in the upper left-hand corner. Yeah, and remember that counterattack has to be on a card that has the ranged icon up in the upper left-hand corner. And if I don't do that, in fact, one of my other options is to retreat at this point if I don't want to fight back. But if I do fight back, I'm simply going to tap whichever card I can or want to and do the attack back to Jeremy, also getting some victory points along the way.
And we're simply going to go back and forth until one of 2 things happens. Either I kill him, or he kills me, or one of us retreats. If you kill the other player or force them to retreat, you get 1 victory point. The other player who possibly gets killed is going to spawn back into their starting base, and we're going to keep going for 6 rounds. Now, there's a scoring round on the 2nd, 4th, and 6th and final round of the game. Scoring is very, very simple. You just simply look at the bottom. Each mine that you have presence in and own that space, you're getting the victory points equal to whatever that value is of that card. Turrets are going to double the value of the spaces where you have, so I'd get 4 points here, 2 points here, and 2 points here. Of course, wherever you have presence and own a spot with your pilot, you're going to get victory points for that. And then if you're in the Mighty Mech itself, you're getting 3 victory points. So if you control that Mighty Mech, it's huge because you have a lot of health and you have a lot of advanced weaponry that can hold.
Yeah, it's really interesting because it mixes in a little bit of like area control, if you will, for the scoring, along with what's at the base root a programming game.
Yeah, truly though, at the very center of it, it's a King of the Hill style game.
Yeah.
You're trying to control the Mighty Mech, you're trying to control as much area as you possibly can over 6 rounds, and upgrading your weaponry as you go. I think it's a really good game. In fact, out of all the Tiny Epic types of games they have, this is probably one of my favorites that they have so far.
Yeah, it was interesting because I didn't know what to expect when we got this because the Tiny Epic, they kind of dance in a few different mechanics every
absolutely.
time, and I didn't expect this. I had no idea that it was going to be programming until we sat down to play it, which is really interesting because I like the idea of programming games, and oftentimes I'll play them and lose interest, but this one is a nice, light, fast-paced programming game with just the right balance of, you know, you're not going to get disappointed if your program goes out the window or anything like that.
Which it often does.
Which it will, for sure. But it's that sort of situation where it's fun and funny instead of disappointing in terms of losing your program.
And a lot of cool different types of weapons you're going to be upgrading through the course of the game as well. So that is Tiny Epic Mechs. It is 2 to 4 players. We're hearing rumors that there's going to be a solo mode as well. If you guys have any questions about the game, make them in the comments. Of course, always check out their Kickstarter. If you have any questions, ask us and we'll answer back. And we will catch you guys next time.
Bye-bye.